and thoughts' entangled skein being wound, he knew the moorland of his swound, and the pale pools that smeared the ground, the far wood pines like offing ships, the fourth pool's yew a new hymn drips, world's cruelty attaints his lips, and still he tastes it, bitter still, though all that glorious possible, he had the sight of present ill. Yet rising calmly up, and slowly, with such a cheer as scorneth folly, a mild delightsome melancholy, he journeyed homeward through the wood, and prayed along the solitude betwixt the pines. O God, my God! The golden morning's open flowings did sway the trees to murmurous bowings, in metric chant of blessed poems. And passing homeward through the wood, he prayed along the solitude, Thou, Poet God, art great and good. And though we must have, and have had right reason to be earthly sad, Thou, Poet God, art great and glad. Conclusion. Life treads on life, and heart on heart. We press too close in church and mart to keep a dream or grave apart. And I was aware of walking down that same green forest where had gone the poet pilgrim. One by one I traced his footsteps. From the east a red and tender radiance pressed through the near trees, until I guessed the sun behind shone full and round, while up the leafiness profound a wind scarce old enough for sound, soon ready to blow on me when I turned that way, and now and then the birds sang and brake off again, to shake their pretty feathers dry of the dew sliding droppingly from the leaf edges, and apply back to their song, twixt dew and bird, so sweet a silence ministered, God seemed to use it for a word. Yet morning souls did leap and run in all things, as the least had won a joyous insight of the sun. And no one looking round the wood could help confessing as he stood, This poet God is glad and good. But hark, a distant sound that grows, a heaving, sinking of the boughs, a rustling murmur, not of those, a breezy noise, which is not breeze, and white-clad children by degrees steal out in troops among the trees, fair little children, morning bright, with faces grave, yet soft to sight, expressive of restrained delight. Some plucked the palm boughs within reach, and others leapt up high to catch the upper boughs and shake from each a rain of dew, till, wetted so, the child who held the branch let go, and it swang backward with a flow of faster drippings. Then I knew the children laughed, but the laugh flew from its own chirrup as might do a frightened songbird. And a child who seemed the chief said very mild, "Hush, keep this morning undefiled." His eyes rebuked them from calm spheres. His soul upon his brow appears in waiting for more holy years. I called the child to me and said, "What are your palms for to be spread?" He answered, "On a poet dead. The poet died last month, and now the world, which had been somewhat slow in honoring his living brow, commands the palms. They must be strewn on his new marble very soon, in a procession of the town." I sighed and said, "Did he foresee any such honor?" "Verily I cannot tell you," answered he, "but this I know, I fain would lay mine own head down another day, as he did, with the fame away." A lily a friend's hand had plucked lay by his deathbed, which he looked as deep down as a bee had sucked. Then turning to the lattice, gazed o'er hill and river, and upraised his eyes illumined and amazed with the world's beauty up to God, re-offering on their iris broad the images of things bestowed by the chief poet. "God," he cried, "be praised for anguish which has tried, for beauty which has satisfied, for his world's presence half within and half without, methought and seen, the sense of being and having been. I thank thee, and my soul hath room for thy grand world. Both guests may come, beauty to soul, body to tomb. I am content to be so weak. Put strength into the words I speak, and I am strong in what I seek. I am content to be so bare before the archers everywhere, my wounds being stroked by heavenly air. I laid my soul before thy feet, that images of fair and sweet should walk to other men on it. I am content to feel the step of each pure image. Let those keep to mandragore who care to sleep. I am content to touch the brink of the other goblet, and I think my bitter drink a wholesome drink, because my portion was assigned, wholesome and bitter. Thou art kind, and I am blessed to my mind. Gifted for giving, I receive the maythorn, and its scent outgive. I grieve not that I once did grieve. In my large joy of sight and touch, beyond what others count for such, I am content to suffer much. I know is all the mourner saith. Knowledge by suffering entereth, and life is perfected by death. The child spake nobly. Strange to hear his infantine soft accents clear, charged with high meanings, did appear, and fair to see, his form and face winged out with whiteness and pure grace from the green darkness of the place. Behind his head a palm tree grew, an orient beam which pierced it through, transversely on his forehead drew the figure of a palm branch brown, traced on its brightness up and down in fine fair lines, a shadow crown. Guido might paint his angel so, a little angel taught to go with holy words to saints below. Such innocence of action, yet significance of object met in his whole bearing strong and sweet, and all the children, the whole band, did round in rosy reverence stand, each with a palm bough in his hand. And so he died, I whispered. Nay, not so, the childish voice did say. That poet turned him first to pray. In silence, and God heard the rest, twixt the sun's footsteps down the west. Then he called one who loved him best. Yea, he called softly through the room. His voice was weak yet tender. Come, he said, come nearer. Let the bloom of life grow over, undenied. This bridge of death which is not wide, I shall be soon at the other side. Come, kiss me. So the one in truth, who loved him best in love, not ruth, bowed down and kissed him, mouth to mouth. And in that kiss of love was won life's manumission. All was done. The mouth that kissed last, kissed alone. But in the former confluent kiss, the same was sealed, I think by his, the words of truth and uprightness. The child's voice trembled, his lips shook like a rose leaning o'er a brook, which vibrates, though it is not struck. And who, I asked, a little moved, yet curious-eyed, was this that loved and kissed him last, as it behooved? I, softly said the child, and then, I, said he louder once again, his son. My rank is among men. And now that men exalt his name, I come to gather palms with them, that holy love may hallow fame. He did not die alone, nor should his memory live so, mid these rude world praisers, a worse solitude. Me, a voice calleth to that tomb, where these are strewing branch and bloom, saying, come nearer, and I come. Glory to God, resumed he, and his eyes smiled for victory, or their own tears which I could see fallen on the palm, down cheek and chin. That poet now has entered in the place of rest, which is not sin. And while he rests, his songs in troops walk up then down our earthly slopes, companioned by diviner hopes. But thou, I murmured, to enlarge the child's speech, Father, hast an age too tender for this orphanage. Glory to God, he saith. Knowledge by suffering entereth, and life is perfected by death.